guide us, each one. And we pray that because of your great sacrifice, we will be able to be reunited with that which we have once lost, that those things that humanity once had. Help us today. In Jesus' name, amen. So we're going to talk about the chemical cuisine and things that are lurking in the food and a little beyond that. And I want to preface all of this with the fact that I'm not a doctor. I used to be an EMT, but that still doesn't technically qualify me for this. But where I do qualify is I've got 29 years of reading, research, and working with many, many people, all kinds of diseases from, I think, for the most part, if you named it, unless you go, well, they have this type of cancer. Well, maybe we didn't work with that cancer, but we probably worked with 20 others, at least, or more.
There were so many types of breast cancer.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, cancer is cancer. It might be located in different places. But so qualifications literally come from, I've not gone to any formal training or anything on health other than just hundreds of hours of research and the testimony that 29 years later, I still have my wife that was given 3 months to live 29 years ago. So to me, that's pretty good. That's pretty good testimony. So there's 3 things that make us sick, or that can make us sick. 3 major categories. One is bacterial. So bacterial things can make us sick. Another one is fungal. And that one has become huge. Bacterial has been a problem for a long time. Botulism in tomatoes, for instance, with bacterial. But the fungal issue has become huge. All the food that we've been preparing has been, all the dry things, well, even the lettuces and peppers and all that, it gets rinsed in food-grade hydrogen peroxide. And some of it, you ought to see it. Melanie had, that was the buckwheat this morning. It was boiling out of the top of the container, and she's hollering at me to grab something quick. I'm losing all the buckwheat, because it was coming out and over and into the sink, and we didn't want to be pulling it out of the sink to be feeding it to everybody, and including ourselves. And it was the fungus that it was killing. Fungus has just become huge to the point. What? Yeah, it's because, Melanie reminded me of something here, and that is, as our youngest son was doing some studies, he learned that at Chernobyl, the first thing that started growing after after that whole incident was fungus, because fungus thrives on high radioactivity. That's what, and they were showing him and different things of mushrooms like this that are normally like this. They just went, science fiction kind of says things, with radiation, it's everything gets big and whatnot. Well, the mushrooms really do. That part is true. He was learning. He was like, Dad, come look at this. Come look at this. This is amazing. And I wish we could have saved it. The other one that we're affected is parasitic. So one of those 3 is bacterial, fungal, or parasitic. Parasites you get by breathing. You get them off of food. You get them, I shake hands with somebody and my nose itches, so I rub my nose and I passed it and it's been transferred. And so there's things that we can do to prevent all of those things. So the question is, do we go and seek the help of man for all of these things? And of course the answer is no. What we do is back to the old adage of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Meaning that We can rinse our food off, like with the hydrogen peroxide. It was interesting. There was a point about, let's see, well, that was 18. 2018, I was down to where the only thing I could eat literally was split peas and brown rice. And I usually mix them together. If I ate anything else, I would just get a bowl or a garbage can, hold my head over it, and my nose would just pour. I was literally using 1 to 3 boxes of Kleenex a day when I wasn't hanging over it, blowing my nose. And you know how you get a cold, your nose gets all red, and then never. Didn't happen. But it would run. I would be standing talking to somebody like this, and I go, and then all of a sudden, and I knew when I'd sneeze, my nose started running. So, and I tried all kinds of things. First, I thought I had just picked up a viral thing or something, and parasitic, and was working on trying to get rid of that. Parasite stuff didn't touch it. And long story short, I didn't start getting better till we did 2 things. One, we started working on, and we're going to talk more about the gut as we go on, but we worked on healing the gut, the intestinal tract. When I say gut, I'm talking about literally from mouth to where it exits, all the way through, because it's all part of that process. And we started working on healing that, and we also started, I had food tests, allergy food tests. I was allergic to everything. I was even allergic to brown rice, but it didn't seem like it affected me as bad. And when I say everything, the only thing that they said that I could have was red meat, and I'm not going there. That was the only thing that really didn't show, but allergens, non-allergens, it was everything. And we finally found the key with rinsing the food. And I can eat any of it now, but if I go and eat some that's not been rinsed, it's trouble. And the craziest thing that happened that I couldn't figure out is Melanie would make bread, like what we've been having up here, and I couldn't eat it. Give me just a second, or I'll lose my train of thought. I couldn't eat it because it would just make me, well, she'd said it would make me a snot. And so we always teased me about being a snot. So anyway, I told her that if it was money, honey, I'd blow it all on you. But anyway, but I could eat. There was one time our youngest son and I we were out, we were late. It was late for a meal time, and we'd gotten a call from another realtor. We had to go to another inspection that we didn't plan on. We didn't have lunch with us. We swung into Walmart, and I'm going, what am I going to do? There's nothing I can eat in here. And I was hungry. It had been a long day already. And Matthias says, well, Dad, why don't we get a baguette? It's a kind of a harder bread, and it's a white bread, and some tomato juice. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm thinking this is going to be a miserable afternoon, but I'm going to do it. I ate it, and I didn't have any trouble. It's like, why could I get, it was not made with the best of ingredients.
White flour and salt.
Yeah, it's real simple ingredients, but it's white flour. It's processed food, and yet it didn't give me any troubles. And I've been learning about that as well. It's because of the high processing. Number one, the stuff is processed, that the glyphosates that are on the wheat, when they spray to harvest, when they spray Roundup on the wheat so that you get your harvest and all of that at the same time, that's being absorbed in. And those things affect us, all of us. And the white flour was more highly processed, and so therefore that was lessened. The fungus was also lessened. And so I had a question.
No, you go ahead, I'll ask you.
Okay. So anyway, we kept working on this, because some of these things didn't make sense. And then we finally find it's the fungal issues, because we'd done parasite cleanses. I'd taken all of the herbs and things for the bacterial, and nothing was working. And then I started doing some research on fungus and realized they're actually using ozone to kill fungus. And they're trying right now, they can do it in a small quantity, and it's time consuming, but they can do it in a small quantity and they can kill it. Because the issue is, if you go out west this time of year, you would find piles outside of the grain elevators. I'm talking areas that are bigger than this building, that are stacked higher than this building, of wheat outside. No tarp, no cover, no roof, nothing. The birds are on it, the critters are running around on it, and you've got all of this out here, and it rains on it, and because of the increase of fungal growth that we have, they're having issues with this, and they're having to throw a lot away. And so they've discovered ozone works great to be able to take it out, but they can't come up with a way yet that they can process it through fast enough. So in other words, even at a government level, at a health level, they're realizing fungus is becoming a huge issue. So the Bible tells us, Psalms 146:3, "Put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help." So we cannot look to a counselor, because a prince is a counselor, one who we take counsel with our being. I found we were driving through a town one day and we saw this billboard, and I handed my phone to Melanie real quick. I said, "Get a picture." Well, she didn't quite catch it all, but she got the billboard. Do you see it? Right there, Babylon. They're in your face with this kind of stuff. Revelation 18:23 is right there. Pharmakia. Witchcraft. Babylon. Second Corinthians 16:12 and 13. And Asa, in the 30th and 9th year of his reign, was diseased in his feet until his disease was exceeding great. Yet in his disease he sought not to the Lord, but to the physicians. And Asa slept with his fathers and died in the 41st year of his reign. So 2 years of being diseased, and he died because he didn't seek to the Lord, he sought to the physicians. And of course, Revelation 18:23, that speaks of, "For thy merchants were great men of the earth, and by their sorceries," or pharmakia, "were all nations deceived." Now I want to show you, I'm going to put it up here on the screen as well, and I know it's not super easy to see, but I have this document. And this is Broadside 2, January 31, 1849. If you would like it, these are up on the table in the book room. This is one of Ellen White's early visions. And there was some interesting points, and there's actually one section that was left out of early writings. And it's about the testimonies and how the testimonies are being rejected. When she said testimonies, that would be like today if I told you the spirit of prophecy. That's what they called the spirit of prophecy, is when they said testimonies. But that's not why I'm showing you this. Why I'm showing you this is this one little paragraph right down here at the bottom right corner of this. And it says, "If any among us are sick, let us not dishonor God by applying to earthly physicians." Ever thought about that one before? "But apply to the God of Israel. If we follow his directions," James 5:14 and 15, "the sick will be healed. God's promise cannot fail. Have faith in God and trust wholly in him, that when Christ, who is our life, shall appear, we may appear with him in glory." It's like, wow. How many of us are so quick to get the sniffles and want to run to the doctor? And here, she said it's a dishonor to God. And I don't believe that we are to, just sit back and say, okay, Lord, here I am, heal me. Because he's given us tools. And like many people that we've helped through the year, in fact, to the point that we will talk to people now, but we won't bring people to our home to help them get well anymore. Because we're tired of working extremely hard, paying the expense ourselves, and having people get well and then go right back to what they were doing. Even after we had explained, this is what caused the problem, this is why you have that problem, and this is the result of it. So they back it up, they get well, and then they go right back to it again. It's like, now when Melanie had cancer, we didn't get any help from anybody else. And we didn't know anything about it. So we share and give a lot of detail to how to, but we've changed that. Take a look at this one. Liquid death. What are they trying to tell us? But in all honesty, if you look at the ingredients on this one, it's actually not all that bad. I mean, I can't say I would want to go drink it, but it could be a whole lot worse. But still, the way they're doing it. What about this one? I took this picture many, many years ago, and I wish it was easier to see. It says, what a way to go. Behold the power of cheese. Right here at the bottom, behold the power of cheese. And we've, of course, got the mouse trap with the cheese on it. Behold the power of cheese. What are they trying to tell us? So, in cheese production, I said that we'd be talking about chemicals, so now we're kind of getting to that. Cheese production involves a few key chemicals and enzymes. And, of course, there's rennet. Now, rennet can come from multiple things. It's not really a chemical, but rennet typically comes from animal source. Pig is number one choice because it's the cheapest. So if you're eating cheese, you're likely eating pig. What does the Bible tell us if we eat pig? Okay, and I'm going to take this all a step further, and I'll give you some more documentation as we go, but I want you to be able to think about this as we go along. And that is, what I'm going to say, some might be a little shocked with, but diet is a salvational issue. Now, I'm not saying you can eat your way to heaven, but I am telling you that if you eat the wrong things, there's a good chance you will lose heaven. And you'll understand why as we continue on. So diet is definitely a salvational issue. So another thing that is typically added in the process of making cheese is something called calcium chloride. We're going to talk more about that one as we go on. Then there's lactic acid. That's usually dairy related, cow. It's lactose. It's from milk, or the sugars from milk. And they use citric acid, which is not necessarily bad. And then they use an enzyme called lipase, and I may not be saying it quite right. Lipase. Lipase. Yeah, I'm bad at some of these words, so you'll have to forgive me or ask how to spell it so you can figure out what I'm talking about. This is an enzyme added to develop stronger flavors. So it's a flavor enhancer. Anytime you have a flavor enhancer, you can assume that it's just about anything. Christian Temperance Bible Hygiene. It's up there on the table. If you haven't read it, you better read it. It's the first health book that James and Ellen White put out. Second book, 1890. This was the second book. The first one was Health and How to Live, which quotes other doctors of the day. Also, by the way, I just got to throw this in. This has nothing to do with health. But You know how Ellen White is blamed as being a plagiarist that she didn't know about? And supposedly she said, well, I didn't know you were supposed to put, guess what, references and all that. Guess what? This book proves that wrong. 1865. There's all kinds of references in here where they are quoting and saying, we're going to such and such a doctor who lives at such and such a place. This was published in such and such a publication, and we're taking an extract from that. I mean, they're very, very detailed about it. So obviously somebody was lying on that. But Christian temperance, Bible hygiene. It is impossible for those who give the reins to appetite to attain to Christian perfection. What does it take for heaven? Christian perfection. Skipping down a little bit. Flesh meats, butter, cheese, rich pastry, spiced foods, and condiments are freely taken of by both old and young. Partaken of by both old and young. These things do their work in deranging the stomach, exciting the nerves, and enfeebling the intellect. The blood-making organs cannot convert such things into good blood. The grease cooked in the food renders it difficult of digestion. The effect of cheese is deleterious. It's like, okay, what on earth is that? Deleterious, Webster's 1828. Having the quality of destroying or extinguishing life. Destructive, poisonous. So that's what her take was on cheese. And of course now we can look at it and chemically analyze things and search on the web and figure out what's there and go, yeah, she was right. A whole long time ago, she was right. So just briefly, I want to mention temperance. Temperance means to abstain from that which is evil and use moderately that which is good. The theme today is usually moderation. But moderation literally means it's okay for me to moderately drink alcohol as long as I don't overdo. It's moderately okay for me to have, to partake of all of these things. I can have a cup of coffee if I really feel the need, or all of that's moderation as long as I don't overdo. Temperance, binge and fast, yeah. Temperance literally means that I'm not touching what's wrong, what's bad. I'm leaving that stuff entirely alone, and then I'm going to use moderately only those things that are good. 1 Thessalonians 5:22, abstain from all appearance of evil. And 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. So test and prove it. General Conference Daily Bulletin, January 30, 1893, paragraph 2. Present temperance with all its advantages in reference to health. Educate the people in regard to the laws of life so that they may know how to preserve health. The efforts put forth at the present time are not meeting the mind of God. Drug medication, as it is generally practiced, is a curse. Educate away from drugs. Use them less and less and depend more upon hygienic agencies. Then nature will respond to God's physicians. Pure air, pure water, proper exercise, a clear conscience. Those who persist in the use of tea, coffee, and flesh meats will feel the need of drugs. But many might recover without 1 grain of medicine if they would obey the laws of health. Drugs need seldom to be used. So, in here, you notice that she named 4 of the commonly spoke of natural doctors. She named 4 of the natural doctors. Pure air, pure water, proper exercise. Actually, I should have said 3. Because clear conscience is not in their list that is in the Ministry of Healing, page 127, paragraph 2, that's commonly referred to. So we have pure air. Sunlight is not mentioned here, but that's one of them. Abstemiousness is another. Rest, exercise, proper diet, use of water, trust in divine power. And it says these are the true remedies. But Ministry of Healing was a book that was compiled and put together in later years. If you search her writings, you will discover there are not 8 laws of health. They left out 2 of them. One of them is the one we read here, clear conscience, and the other one is herbs. So there's 10 moral laws, and there's, whoops, what did I do? Bumped a button. There's 10 moral laws, and there's 10 health laws. Not 8. And I've not made any fancy acronyms or anything like that for it. But clear conscience, we've had a few people try to say, well, that's trust in divine power. Seriously? Think about it. Clear conscience, trust in divine power, how does that weigh out as the same? I can't see that. And herbs, definitely, but of course they did rid of that because they joined the AMA. So there's this tract. I've brought a whole bunch of them down here. I hid them from the last group that was here so that I'd have them. I left some out for them, and there's actually a few on the table, but I've got a bunch if you want these so that you have these. And on the back side is the list of the places as to where those things were found. So clear conscience and herbs. So the issue is, today, disease is on the increase. Oh, and I'm glad that showed up. That one actually showed up. So that is a chart with millions of Americans. 1995, we had 118 million that were sick. That is increasing. 2020, they were saying 157. They're estimating on out to 2030 at 171 million. Disease is on an increase. Years ago, when I was working at a convalescent center, the government came to us with a government employee to our facility. It was a 120-bed facility. I was the maintenance supervisor. But being supervisor, I had to attend all the department head meetings, which meant that I was in that meeting when the state guy from the health department came and told us, now this was back in the 1990s, he said, we are expecting an outbreak of some sort of disease. We're not really exactly sure, but we think that it is going to be tuberculosis. Thank you, Drew. I was pulling a blank. Tuberculosis. And I had to put together a program of how to have to meet all the state regs. I had to install equipment into the rooms so that the air would change so many times per hour and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I made the statement there in that meeting. I said, okay, I think I should be able to put together the equipment to do this. I understand air movement and whatnot and what we need to do that. But I request a 2-hour notice before that patient is brought into the facility so that I can have the equipment installed and be free of that room prior to them bringing the patient into the room. I'm not going to risk my health or my family's health over somebody else that's sick. The infection control nurse that was there, who knew me, she worked there at the facility, she turned to me and she said, Mark, she says, they could spit in your face. Now everybody knows TB is transferred by moisture droplets. They could spit in your face, and she says, you wouldn't get sick. I said, well, that might be true, but and I don't know how it might be true, but I'm not willing to take the chance. And she's repeated herself. And I said, why? And she says, because I know your lifestyle. I know your diet. Because every time we'd have department head meetings, they'd have all this food stuff out there that was fixed in the cafeteria of the facility. 99% I couldn't touch. Usually I'd have a glass of water.
Or celery and carrot sticks.
Or some celery or carrot sticks or something like that added with my lunch, because I couldn't eat it. There was nothing edible. And she knew that my immune system would be of such a height that I didn't have anything to worry about. Prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, this is from the NCBI, put it this way, .gov. Okay, this is a government site. An empirical study of chronic diseases in the United States. This was in 2018. Trends show an overall increase in chronic diseases. And then we have another one here, and this is a AmericanActionForum.org, chronic disease in the United States, a worsening health. Chronic disease in the United States, already highly prevalent, is expected to worsen over the next several decades among all age groups. That was in 2020. Proverbs 3:7. Be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord, and depart from evil. Now, we all tend to want to take this text and use it as a depart from evil, as in, let's not be going and doing evil things. Let's not go murder somebody or something like that. But I'm looking at it from the aspect, we can bring this down to, let's depart from all evil things that we put in here that cause problems on the external. You realize most people that have anger issues and anger attitudes and are out of control is because of what's going in their mouth. This is another one. This is betterfood.co.uk. More than 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Hippocrates said that all disease begins in the gut. It seems he was onto something. New evidence shows that optimal health throughout the whole body starts in the gut. So what he's really saying is health starts with what we eat, is what it really comes down to. And another one, with connecting it with, another reference there. This one they're saying, though, rheumatoid arthritis, an autoimmune disease, thyroid disease, we have now identified as changes in the gut. These are just Google search. I didn't even go into the website. You didn't have to go that far. But I really don't think we need to even go to the web to do this, because we've had the answer all along. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 7. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. What's behind the navel? It's the gut. Right there in the Word of God. It can't get any plainer than this. It's right there. They're saying 70-80% of the immune cells being present in the gut. Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Do you realize that most of the time when you hear somebody talking about the fruit of the Spirit, that they go, love, joy, and peace? It's like, yes, I agreed. No argument. But they stop usually right there. And they leave out the others, especially that temperance, because they don't want temperance. Christian temperance, Bible hygiene. It cannot be too often repeated that whatever is taken into the stomach affects not only the body, but ultimately the mind as well. Gross and stimulating food fevers the blood, excites the nervous system, and too often dulls the moral perceptions so that reason and conscience are overborne by the sensual impulses. Christian temperance, Bible hygiene, page 134. Now, I don't know if you caught something there in the first part of that, but we're all taught, and it's talked about the blood-brain barrier, right? Now, I'm not arguing that. That's, quote, a scientific proven fact. But what did we just read? It cannot be too often repeated that whatever is taken into the stomach affects not only the body, but ultimately the mind. Was she right? Or did she not know what she was talking about? She's right. Okay, let's prove it. What happens? I'm going to say, what happened, guys? I'm sure at least some of you can say with me you did this once upon a time. When you grab a beer and you drink half a dozen, what happens to the mind? Exactly. There's a change, either one way or the other. There's the sleepy, dozy drunks that just kind of doze off, and then there's the angry, fighting ones, but it affects the mind. Goes from the gut to the blood to the mind. So there may be a barrier there of some sort, but obviously alcohol can get past that. What about what we eat? Ask a diabetic if what they eat affects their mind. Or ask any of us who have been out late for dinner to go join somebody and you have a big dinner in the evening, how your mind feels the next morning. See, it really does affect us. So, what about tea and coffee? How do those affect it? Do those affect it? And of course the answer is yes, they do. Everything that goes into the gut ends up affecting the mind in one way or another. And I want to talk about tea and coffee for the simple reason that I'm astounded. As you most of you know, we go to a lot of camp meetings in a lot of places. And you would be amazed at how many serve tea and coffee. And I'm not talking just sitting there. I'm talking they're available for drinking. The habit of tea drinking, or the habit of drinking tea and coffee is a greater evil than is often suspected. Many who have accustomed themselves to the use of stimulating drinks suffer from headache and nervous prostration and lose much time on account of sickness. Christian Temperance, Bible Hygiene, page 35. Back to this same book again. Now, there's been a big rage out there about something called green tea. So let's talk about green tea for a minute. Do a Google search. Do an AI search. Do a little research. You will find that black tea and green tea come from the same plant. They are the same plant. Camellia sinanus, scientific Latin name for it. So the difference is, green tea, the leaves are quickly steamed or pan-fried to prevent oxidation, keeping them green. Black tea, the leaves are fully oxidized, which causes them to darken and develop a stronger flavor. Caffeine content. Black tea generally has more caffeine than green tea, though this can vary depending on the type of preparation. And the higher caffeine content in black tea compared to green tea comes from differences in processing, brewing methods, and sometimes even the specific leaf parts used. Black tea undergoes full oxidation, which alters the chemical composition of the leaves, leading to slightly higher caffeine levels. Now, when talking about coffee, we've got coffee beans and they process through that. But how many people go, oh, well, I don't use regular coffee because of the caffeine. I use decaffeinate. Do a little research. Solvents like methylene chloride and ethyl acetate are used to extract the caffeine. So if you go to a decaffeinated coffee, in all honesty, I think you'd be safer to drink plain old regular coffee than you would decaffeinated. And I'm not saying you should go out and drink coffee. Don't say Mark said drink coffee. But I am saying I think it's safer than decaffeinated because of the chemical extracting processes. You got to know those chemicals, or at least somewhat of residues are left there. And of course, then there's commercial coffees often containing artificial flavorings, sodium benzenate, or phosphates to adjust pH in instant coffees. So they put all of this added stuff in to get it just right. And we're going to also talk here in a little bit about other things that they add to get you to use more. Both green tea and black tea are made from the leaves of, there you go, if you could see it, there's the one I couldn't pronounce, the Latin up there, from this plant. This is healthline.com. And just showing that they're oxidized, I wanted that up there just so you could see. This is not Mark just talking off the top of his head. It's proven. Christian Tempest Bible Hygiene, page 36. We are already suffering because of the wrong habits of our fathers. And yet, how many take a course in every way worse than theirs? Opium, tea, coffee, tobacco, and liquor. Now, I'm going to pause right there for just a moment. Did you notice opium, tea, coffee, tobacco, and liquor are all put together in a kind of like a group? Now, I'm going to focus on the opium for just a moment. We talked about tea and coffee. I think tobacco and liquor is pretty self-explanatory. With this group, at least, I would hope you'd understand. I mean, there's even warnings on cigarettes, but now they're saying that was a marketing ploy to get people to use more. But anyway, so opium. What is made from opium? Well, what? Okay, it's the pop. Yeah, opium is the poppies. So what drug is used? What street drug comes from opium? There you go, heroin. What pharmaceutical drug comes from opium? Morphine. Morphine. They're both, so heroin and morphine are made from opium. Heroin is a semi-synthetic derivative of morphine. In other words, it's a little more highly refined. If you read about it, you will discover that it's even more powerful than the morphine. Is there any reason why? And I don't think I included this because in this study, any references, any quotes, but look it up. Search morphine in the E.G. White writings. She talks about it. It's a common drug that's used. I think I will go without if I have any say in the matter. Okay, so going back to this, opium, tea, coffee, tobacco, and liquor are rapidly extinguishing the spark of vitality still left in the race. Every year, millions of gallons of intoxicating liquors are drank. Millions of dollars are spent for tobacco. Reason is paralyzed, the intellect benumbed, because all of these things affect the mind. The animal passions are excited. Animal passions, when you search that out in Spirit of Prophecy, what she's trying to tell us there is literally the beast, the brute in humanity. Meaning that somebody can go kill somebody and then they just use the excuse, whether they were or not, on liquor or whatever, on opium or something, and they weren't in their right mind. And so then they get off with less because they were in an altered state. But it seems to me they chose to do that. Nobody forced them. But all of these chemicals, and it says, then follow crimes and the most debasing character. How can the user of rum or tobacco give to God an undivided heart? It is impossible. And the reason I share this is I seriously don't think that anyone here would be using liquor or tobacco or coffee. Well, maybe coffee. Probably not heroin. But how many use morphine? How many use tea, green tea? And it's like, okay, so green tea, I understand they've done a lot of studies and they say green tea is beneficial to the health in this way, and they've got all of these things. But does that make it right?
They say that about regular tea too.
Yeah. They say that about wine. Red wine helps it. And so my question is, I'll do it this way, and this is what I've said for years about tinctures. When we have an herbal tincture. So in my left hand, I have some alcohol, 100 proof alcohol, okay? In my right hand, I have some herbs. Now this is poison, we all know that. Okay, it's hard on the liver, it causes health issues, etc. This is healthy. We're talking about maybe echinacea or golden seal or something like that. So now I take this and I pour it in this and I shake it up and I let it set and I shake it some more and I make a tincture and I strain off. Now I strain off all the good herb. And then I tell you, I have something better. So what if I said it to you this way? I have over here my herbs. I have over here some strychnine. And I'm going to pour my herbs into the strychnine, the poison. Alcohol's a poison. And I'm going to shake it up and I'm going to mix it and then I'm going to strain the good off of it again and I'm going to go, here you go, I have something better. Do you want it? Just because one is a slow poison and the other is a fast poison, is there a difference? So, and I understand, fully understand, I've seen it work, I've seen the issues. In fact, in all honesty, I'll admit, I keep tincture of cayenne with hawthorn in the vehicle. I keep it in our trailer. I keep it at home for Melanie. She has a bad heart. And there's been she was poisoned with cyanide. But anyway, we use that in an emergency. If I have time to get to the cayenne and water, I mix up cayenne and water and give it to her that way. But there's been a few times we're driving down the road and what usually triggers it is stress. So we can be driving down the road, somebody pulls out, I stomp the brakes, or a deer jumps out, I stomp the brakes. She pumps adrenaline, her heart flips out, and she goes into heart attack symptoms. And I don't happen to have readily cayenne and water available. We'll use it in an emergency is what I'm telling you, but it's not something we want. And the reason we use it, we know that it preserves it well. We know that it can make those herbs more powerful. But you know what? I can take that cayenne and use a little more of it and put it in water, and it'll do the exact same thing and just as well. And I'm going to give you another example with this before I move on. When I was on the ranch working with the animals, during lambing season, I would be out in the fields on the four-wheeler going through, and I would find a lamb. Mama had left it too long. It had been laying out in the sunshine. But guess what? The ground was cold. It was early March. And so the ground would be cold, and they would get chilled and contract pneumonia quite quickly. And I had this idea, if I could just somehow warm them up quickly, because oftentimes I'd pick them up, there was still life. They were still breathing. Their heart was slow. They're not even moving. They're just kind of laying there. And I'd cuddle them into my arm and grab the four-wheeler, and off I'd head for the house. We'd put them in a pan and stick them in the oven with the door open, trying to warm them up, trying to get their core body temperature to come up. And we would use herbs and things, but oftentimes they'd be dead by the time I got to the house. And you got to realize this was a big ranch. It might take me 45 minutes to get back home, across the ranch, even on a four-wheeler. It's a long ways, and it was a lot of up and down and gates. And so I had this idea. I made cayenne tincture. I went to the liquor store, I bought some vodka, and I put some cayenne in it, and I shook it up, and I made tincture, and I put a bottle in my pocket, and I carried it with me. I would be out there in the field, they'd find a lamb, I'd grab the cayenne tincture, I'd give it a dropper full, and in the mouth, yeah, I'd put it in the sheep's mouth to get that in there, to stimulate. I think you all know what cayenne does, stimulates the heart and gets circulation moving. It helps to warm things up and whatnot, and we could talk a lot about that, but I don't want to take the time of that. But the lamb would die every single time. Not once did I save a lamb. I never made it back to the house. It was dead. And I couldn't figure out why.
You did that for like 3 days before
Yeah, it was like 3 days.
you talked to John.
And I talked to my boss about it, and I said, what might be the cause? Because I was left pretty much open. I could do whatever I wanted to with the lambs. We had a good save rate. He had a 20% save rate before we came. We had an 80% save rate. We were using herbs. He was using drugs. And it was all good for him because it was money in his pocket. So I asked him, what do you think is the cause of this? Why are they dying? He goes, he says, I think that's simple. He says, sheep have very volatile livers. He says, their livers are very, very sensitive. He says, we have to be very careful what we give them because they will tip over and die. I was like, So the next day I'm out and I find a set of twins laying there side by side, both just almost gone. And we brought them to the house. And I said, Melanie, we're doing an experiment. So I'm going to give this lamb here cayenne and water. I'm going to give this lamb cayenne tincture. The one that got cayenne and water, within 5 minutes was up on his feet saying, I'm hungry. There's the groceries around this place. The other lamb was dead. We tried it again, not on twins, but we tried it again on one other just to make sure. Bring in 2 lambs, tested it. Every single one with the tincture died. So I started every morning mixing up cayenne and water, putting it in the bottle and sticking it in my pocket. At that point, we had a 100% save rate of at least getting them into the house. They were, not always did they live the next 2 or 3 weeks, which was the critical point, but the majority did. We increased our percentage of saves. So what I'm telling you is the alcohol has its negative effect. Now, our livers aren't as sensitive as sheep. It can take a little more abuse before it becomes an issue. But why abuse it? Why do we want to do that to it? Okay, Christian Temperance Bible Hygiene, page 51. Never take tea, coffee, beer, wine, or any spirituous liquor. Do not, here, this is page 51 as well. Do not eat largely of salt. Now, you notice it didn't say don't eat it, just don't overdo. Give up spiced pickles. Keep fiery foods out of the stomach. Eat fruit with the meals, and the irritation that calls for so much drink will cease to exist. Now, I want to talk about this one for a moment because pickles and fiery foods. Now, I'm not talking about taking some dry cayenne and sprinkling a bit of that on the food, or like we just talked about, using cayenne as a help for the heart, as a medicine. But what I am talking about is like the fiery hot sauces or the specifically that. What we have found through much research is when you cook the cayenne, when you heat it, when you cook it, it releases volatile oils that cause it to become a stomach irritant. When you use it as a dry powder on the food uncooked, it becomes a healant. It may be warm. Just recently, I told him, a man called me and he was talking, he's like, I'm in a lot of pain, my chest is killing me. And I started talking and I said, you're having a heart attack. And as we talked further, at first he goes, well, yeah, maybe. And then we talked further. No, it was on the right side, not the left side. And I said, you got an issue going on with your lungs. Melanie hollers from the other room. She didn't hear me respond. He's got an issue going on from his lungs. Well, turned out he did go to the doctor, get checked, and yes, he had a blood clot in his lungs. I told him to start taking cayenne and water. Every 15 minutes was doing that. And he started improving using the cayenne and water.
How many days was it?
He took it every 15 minutes he took 12 doses of it initially. And then I told him to start taking it several times a day.
So how much of each? Half and half?
I told him to use a teaspoon roughly a level teaspoon of cayenne in like an 8-ounce glass of water. And that's hot. That's going to not be pleasant. And like he told me, and so I can tell you this because he remains unnamed. He says the consequences the next 2 days were pretty intense. Okay, in other words, things came out pretty hot. But you know what? He's still alive. So, yes, dear.
About the heart as well. How we use that, the hot water.
No, yeah, we had a lady call Melanie at 10 o'clock at night. And the long story short, at 2 a.m. in the morning, after Melanie having her drink cayenne and water repeatedly, over and over and over again, at 2 a.m., she goes, I'm really tired. Can I try to sleep a little bit now? So she did, and Melanie got off the phone. We live 6 hours away. We tried to get her, she was classic heart attack symptoms, through and through, no doubt about it. We tried to get her to wake her husband up, to take her to the hospital. She said, no, if I die, I die. I'm not going to the hospital. Well, the next morning when he did get up and he found out what happened, he said, you're going to the hospital. He took her to the hospital. Well, when they do blood work, they can see if the enzymes in the blood are elevated because of a heart attack, certain ones. So they did that test and yeah, way up there. She had a massive heart attack in the night. So then immediately they start checking the heart and they couldn't figure out why there was no damage. Within an hour, they sent her home. And then we got a phone call. What?
That's what cayenne does.
That's what the result of using cayenne. Also for stroke. So it has its purposes, it has some good things, but eating the spicy foods, especially like chili peppers are cooked, raw, whatever, yeah, leave them alone. They're different. They are not the same thing. Cayenne,
Black and white pepper also.
yeah, white pepper, black pepper, no, leave them alone.
The other thing I wanted to say was when I was at a medical missionary school, sometimes you can't get the water and the cayenne into a person. But if you keep cayenne on you, the person that passed out that was having a heart attack, we put cayenne under the tongue.
Yes.
By the time the ambulance got there, she was up and fine. And so cayenne, you can use
Yes.
under the tongue.
Cayenne powder. Melanie has done that with a lady that she was doing fever treatments on and her heart stopped and in the bathtub. And she grabbed cayenne and rubbed it in her mouth, rubbed it under her tongue, and it made the difference. Okay.
What do you do with turmeric? They say that you should use black pepper to activate it.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there so it doesn't do it again.
Right.
Okay, nothing else is. So that she was asking about what about turmeric, black pepper activates it. I'll have to say, I've never heard of black pepper activating it. I will tell you, black pepper, there is one parasite that we've been able to identify that, and when I say we've been able to identify, I'm talking about, reading documents and articles and things on it. I'm not a scientist. I'm not that type of a researcher. But they have found that black pepper is a parasitic killer. And there's one kind of parasite that it kills that nothing like black walnut, cloves, wormwood doesn't touch it. Duodenal worm. So it might have an application there as a medicine. I've used it personally for that. But if you were to come to our house, you won't find black pepper in our house. It's not there. Okay, and I got to move on before I get... okay, come on. Something happened and it's not... Great. My computer has totally froze. I can't get it. Wow. It has froze up completely. Yeah, there we go. Take cayenne for the computer. Where's it? Okay. Counsels and diets and foods, page 345. The salads are prepared with oil and vinegar. Fermentation takes place in the stomach. Here we go again with the gut. And the food does not digest, but decays or putrefies as a consequence. The blood is not nourished. It becomes filled with impurities, and liver and kidney difficulties appear. So, letter 9, 1887. So obviously fermentation is an issue. I'm going to go on here. Pickles, and it's hard to see it there, but I have circled distilled vinegar. So what are the negative effects of apple cider vinegar? Okay, here I go again. I know this is another one. People say apple cider vinegar is something healthy, but isn't vinegar really vinegar? So search it out. This is healthline.com, nutrition on apple cider vinegar. I found it numerous. Search the negative effects. And then you can weigh the balance between the two. Delayed stomach emptying. In other words, it stops digestion. It causes digestive side effects, low potassium levels, and bone loss. If you got osteoporosis or osteopenia and you're using vinegar, you're just making the problem worse. Erosion of tooth enamel, throat burns, skin burns, drug irritations. Interactions, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to just run through real quick 25 foods that can often contain hidden vinegar. Now, some of them might be kind of obvious to some of you, but to a lot of people, it's not. Ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, pickles, salad dressings, barbecue sauce, hot sauce, Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, marinades, relish, cold slaw, sauerkraut, salsa, canned vegetables, bread, especially sourdough, my favorite, potato chips, pickled beets, pickled jalapenos, kimchi, certain potato or pasta salads, coleslaw dressings, some frozen meals, especially with sauces, fermented tofu, and baked beans. Those are just a few things. I know you couldn't have written it down that fast. Yes?
Read your labels, because all of those things don't have vinegar. You can make your own.
Oh, you can make your own without it. We've been doing it
Make your own, like,
without the vinegar in it.
make your own coleslaw, make your own, yeah. Make your own.
Yes, but if you go and buy it, you're likely getting these things. Okay, now this same jar of pickles that we have the distilled vinegar in, we have polysorbate 80. So let's take a look. Polysorbate 80 is a synthetic sulfactorant composed of fatty acids, esters, and polyoxyethylene sorbitan. And if you can say it better, you're welcome. The fatty acid composition is primarily oleic acid, but other fatty acids such as palmitic or linoleic acid may be included. Let's go a little further. What is polysorbate, or is polysorbate 80 vegan? Polysorbates are generally created with animal sources. So you're now having meat with your pickles. Okay? Polysorbate 80 is a synthetic sulfurant composed of fatty acid esters. Let's see, I read that one. Oh, here, but it mentioned, we read that one, but it mentions cerec acid. Okay? Cerec acid, or C18, also known as I'm not even going to try to say it here. It's an acid. Is a long chain saturated fatty acid with molecular formula, blah, 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 blah. It is a common fatty acid found in both animal fats and vegetable oils. So you got a double dose of this polysorbate 80 because not only is it self-made with animal products, but the process of the cerec acid that was developed to help extract it, it also was made with animal fats. So where you find some of this kind of stuff, cosmetics, soaps, the food industry, and pharmaceuticals, you might be taking polysorbate 80 in your prescription medicine. In its pure form, cerec acid appears as a white, waxy solid. It is considered non-toxic, non-irritating in general use. That's what they say. Cerec acid is typically sourced from the fats of and oils of animals: cattle, beef tallow, pigs, lard, sheep, mutton. In some cases, cerec acid may be derived from other animal fats, but beef and pork fats are the most common sources. Now, let me share a little secret with you. Pork is much cheaper than beef. And they're going to go to the cheapest thing they can so they can put more money in their pocket. So the likelihood of the cerec acid that is being used being beef over pork, it's more likely to be the pork. Oh, and before I go on to that one, I just got to add something. When I was on the ranch, we also had goats. We had sheep, cattle, goats, horses, dogs, and a lot of them. We had 250 goats. And I asked the boss what was the purpose of all the goats besides taking care of the poison ivy or poison oak that we had there in Oregon. And he said, and of course he knew we were vegan. And he said, he smiles and he says, yeah, most people don't know it, but taco burger, he says, that meat is an anything go meat. He said, you might be eating horse, you might be eating goat, sheep, cow, pig, taco burgers. Go to the Mexican restaurant and have a taco, a beef taco, quote, beef taco. It likely will not be beef. It will be just about anything else that they can grind up. And that was a rancher that I was speaking with. And he actually sold all our goats. When we did sell off goats, we'd get too many, and because we kept them mainly for control of the poison oak there, but when we get too many, he'd sell a bunch and they would go to the meat factory for taco burger. Okay, going on. Natural flavors, should we eat them? Natural flavors can be plant or animal. anything goes. There's a lot of things that it could be, according to one of our presidents from the past, Obama. Thank you, dear. I was trying to remember who it was. He said that using the kidney cells from aborted fetuses in Pepsi Cola is normal business. He made the decision because it was stymied at the Supreme Court. And it came to where the president made which way it's going to go. So natural flavors, when you see that, the best thing to do, if you call them, you can, and I've done this, I've called and I've talked to them, and I've said, what is it? And they'll say, well, we can't give you that information, that's proprietary secrets for. And I said, well, I have a lot of allergies to a lot of things, and I need to make sure that it's not an issue. And, well, we can't tell you. I said, are there any known allergens in it? Well, yes, possibly. And I said, okay, so also, can you tell me, I said, are there any dairy sources? Now, they can be different with different places in it. I don't need to know what or how much or the type. Are there any dairy sources? Yes, likely. So, in other words, natural flavor, really just, if you can leave it alone, you're better off. When you see that as kind of a run. But we're already on the third thing in here that we shouldn't be eating, but I'm going to give you a couple of more here. This is more about the natural flavors. I'm going to go on. So, boy, I can't see that very well, but you'll see the next one, I hope. What's for dinner? Why don't we have some ice melt? Does that sound good? Want some ice melt? Okay. So let's bring that up a little closer. Oh, and it doesn't show, but what's circled here on the right is, it says calcium chloride blend. And what I've got over here circled is that better. Let's make it bigger. There you go. Sodium chloride, calcium chloride, magnesium chloride. That is the blend of this particular ice melt. You know, for putting on your sidewalks to keep it from being slick with the snow, right? For the northern country. So, everything to know about the hazards of calcium chloride. You'll get it why we're talking about this in a moment. So, and this little blip here, it goes on and it talks about here employees being, having deaths related to chemical exposure. And it's a 18 out of every 100 full-time employees, they say. So what we want to do is when I worked at the Convalescent Center, one of the parts of my job is I had to have what's known as a Material Data Safety Sheet, MSDS for short, for every single chemical product used in the facility, all the cleaning products, all the laundry products, everything that was used in the kitchen, I had to have a Material Data Safety Sheet on. And I had to be knowledgeable of what it was, what the dangers were, and all of this stuff. So I'm very familiar with reading material data safety sheets, but they're really not that complicated. Let's take a look at a material data safety sheet for, if you look here, calcium chloride, okay? And you're not seeing the whole thing. We're several pages into this calcium chloride. But it says right down here at the bottom, after swallowing, rinse mouth thoroughly, do not induce vomiting, have exposed individuals drink sips of water, seek medical attention if irritation, discomfort, or vomiting persists. Okay? So it's not one that you got to go to the hospital immediately, but at the same time, it's got some pretty significant issues, digestion issues and irritations and these things. Let's look at another material data safety sheet. This was another one, just I pulled random different ones because different manufacturers are going to have different material data safety sheets. So ingestion, harmful if swallowed, may cause gastric distress, nausea, vomiting if ingested. Not something I don't think we want for dinner. Well, one of the things with calcium chloride that caught my attention was, being that I've been a contractor for a long time, in the wintertime when we're pouring concrete slab work and it's wintertime, we add calcium chloride to the mix because it keeps it from freezing. It's an antifreeze. It keeps it from it. And this is the key thing. It is a preferred additive for accelerating cement hydration. Now, cement hydration is the curing of the cement, the removal of the water from the cement. Remember that point as we go on with this. You're going to go, whoa. So calcium chloride helps that removal of water. So according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, calcium chloride is found in a number of household products, including cement mix, accelerators, moisture absorbers, laundry detergent, stain removers, fabric softener, dishwasher detergent, toilet bowl cleaners, and ice melt. So where else do we see it? That's that same jar of pickles we've been looking at. Right there we have calcium chloride. Ever wondered why you had indigestion after you had a few pickles?
Somebody's out to get us.
So let's keep looking. So here's an Mount Olive organic. By the way, I got to say, not only for the video, but for everybody here, I am not picking on brands. It's not about this brand. Okay, I'm not pointing that out. I'm not trying to say their brand is bad. I'm just trying to show you what's in it. Okay, so the same one, we have vinegar, we have calcium chloride, and we have natural flavors in this brand of pickles. And I think I'm just gonna, I had some quotes here, but I'm gonna skip over those and go to this one. God provided food in its natural state for our first parents. He gave Adam charge of the garden to dress and care for it, saying, to you it shall be for meat. And behold, I've given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, which is the fruit of every tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. We've got clear instructions as to what our diet should be. And before we go to a few more samples, I want to read this one. This is from the original testimonies, number 15. It says, your digestive organs are frequently severely taxed by receiving into your stomachs food which is not the most healthful and at times is immoderate quantities. If the taste is gratified, this wearies the stomach and unfits it for the reception of food, even the most healthful. You keep your stomachs constantly debilitated because of your wrong habits of eating. Your food is made too rich. It is not prepared in a simple, natural state, but is totally unfit for the stomach. When you have prepared it to suit your taste, you have consulted taste without reference to health. Original testimony number 15, page 56. Rotel. And there we go on the right side, calcium chloride and natural flavors. We've got our de-icer in our Rotel brand of diced tomatoes and green chilies. Let's try another one. How about Simple Truth organic diced tomatoes? We have, it's a little better, no natural flavors, but we still have calcium chloride. Why the calcium chloride? See, my mind works different, I think, than a lot of people. It's like with this. Why do I see calcium chloride in so much product? What? Trying to poison us? Yeah, maybe. But there's something better than that, something more than that. I'm gonna back up. I showed it to you. Accelerating cement hydration. Okay? So it causes, by the way, calcium chloride is salty to the taste. So it gives, it's like adding a salt as well. but it causes dehydration. Why would they want to get you dehydrated? How about this one? Sam's Club water, calcium chloride and sodium bicarbonate. Calcium chloride and water, what are they doing? You drink the water and now you're more thirsty, so you drink more water. Uh-oh, everybody's looking at their water bottles. I'm watching him drink with a smile on his face. Calcium chloride, by the way, it is in the majority of the waters.
Oh, Mark, if
So-
someone says oxygenated with ozone, like this is the water I buy.
Okay,
Ozone.
ozone, you won't have any fungus in there. So good thing and that's not necessarily bad with the ozone. Yeah. The calcium chloride, see, their purpose behind this is to get you to, it's all about money. It's to get you to use more product. And as you use more product, then you tend to buy more product. You buy more water, etc. So let's see if it's in any others. Oh, I forgot. We'll go there in a moment. But potassium bicarbonate. Anybody know what that is? I know you do.
How do you try to?
Common name, baking soda. Why would you use baking soda in water? Now, if you call them and ask them, they're likely going to tell you it's for flavoring.
Right.
That's what they're going to tell you. But what does the Spirit of Prophecy tell us about baking soda?
It kills the hydrochloric acid.
There you go. That kills the hydrochloric acid. So, hand in hand with the calcium chloride and the sodium bicarbonate, those two working together is going to really cause you to neutralize the acid. The food's not going to digest well. And so now you feel like you need to kind of wash it through. And so you're going to drink some more water.
Now you're open to gut cancer.
And now you've got colon cancer.
Baking soda causes
Colon cancer. Yeah, she just said baking soda causes colon cancer.
What about using it to clean your vegetables and fruits with?
There's things that are better that you can use besides that.
Salt is very good.
Is baking powder the same thing as baking soda?
No. But she speaks against baking powder as well. Look them up. I'm not even taking time to go there today, but look those up and search it and then make your own decisions on that. You can find it. So let's hear. And by the way, when you look it up, look up this word, write this one down. Saleratus, Saleratus, Saleratus. Okay, that is another name for baking soda.
That's what it's called, the spirit of prophecy.
In the Spirit of Prophecy, you'll find it listed as that as well. So here we have, in this bottle of water, this one here, and I blew it up and stuck it here in the corner, we have potassium bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate, calcium citrate, sodium chloride, and magnesium oxide. Sounds like something most people, you think when you buy a bottle of water, you're just getting water, filtered water, but no, not necessarily. So, nope, it's not listed there. I have never seen a bottled water that says fluoride added. It shows it.
We used to, I haven't seen it lately. I don't drink bottled water anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah. it's getting dangerous to even drink a bottle of water. And if the Lord doesn't come soon, we'll probably just be, yeah. No more question?
So I just said, I switched to distilling, and my son said, I cannot drink your water. It's so salty, it's salty, it's salty.
One thing though, she said she switched to distilling water. So distilling is a great process. It cleans, it makes it a empty, or what's called a hungry water. It's mineral deficient. There's only one negative thing about distilled water. For a cleanse, it is awesome. For long-term use, distilled water will deplete you of all minerals. So if you're not doing something to put the minerals back in,
You have to add the Celtic salt when you take it.
so when you add, but when you, so you add, you look for what you're adding back, make sure that what you're adding back. One thing that I should have brought the bottle down, for those of you that are here, we could show you at lunchtime. What we have gone to using with that is something called sea water. And it actually is sea water from the ocean. It comes from 600 meters down. It's taken out of the Pacific Ocean, quite a ways out. It's probably about the purest place that you can get it. I still wonder, they only filter it through like a coffee filter type material. It's not processed, it's refrigerated the whole time. We've done some pretty good looking, and seawater has some good things, although the ocean's a distiller and there's a lot of crud that runs to the ocean. And when we lived there in Oregon, the cranberry bogs, every year when they flood the berry bogs, they put up warnings for all the pregnant women and children not to eat any seafood that's caught within 20 miles of the shore. So I started asking, why? I want to know why. And it's because they're using a product. It's not called this because they can't legally call it this anymore, but it's the same thing, just with a different name. I don't remember. It 2,4-D is what it's called. It is what the old terminology was. 2,4-D is a herbicide that's very, very toxic. It's been outlawed. So a company came along and remanufactured it almost exactly the same, call it something else, and they use that now instead. Anyway, so that goes into the ocean. So I have wondered about ocean, and yet there's a lot of the minerals there. So all I could say is,
Lord bless this.
yeah, bless this food, do something with it.
And get your minerals back with Celtic salt in your distilled water. Have you ever checked that out?
The
Celtic salt.
Oh, Celtic salt? Yeah. But that's a sea salt, and so you're getting the minerals from the sea salt still. So either way, by the way, the seawater is very, very salty. You need to cleanse. Want to cleanse things through? Drink a liter of that stuff. Oh yeah, you'd be doing good if you can get it all down, but they get the liter down. But I'll guarantee you, it will clean things out, which they actually use as a treatment to cleanse things.
At the beginning, you were talking about your being sick, and then you started rinsing. Did you rinse back then with the H2O2?
Not initially, no. We didn't know about that. When we started using the food grade rinsing and the food grade hydrogen peroxide, I started being able to eat things again. And I can eat almost anything that's in our diet spectrum and have no issues at all. Nobody's seen me snotting and sneezing here. I have a few times.
There were two other factors. For starters, he sprayed to kill mold on an unfinished house, not wearing a respirator, not realizing when you hit it with the killer, it spores out, and he breathed. So he breathed that for 8 hours one day. And in about 2 weeks, he and our older son both nearly died. And it took us a while to figure out what was going on. But then we moved to Moldy, Tennessee. Moldy, Tennessee. We were from the high desert out west. And so moving here where it rains a lot, the houses are moldy. The other thing factor that has really helped him come out of this pouring snot stage is is the fact that you mentioned ozonate, ozone generator.
Yeah.
And we got one. They're $125.
Yeah. Go get it, please. It's here.
Okay.
Go get it. I was going to bring that over and I forgot.
And we,
And if I have time at the end here, I was going to show it.
and it kills the mold in the house.
Ozone, it can-
Yeah, David?
Because my mom has.
Not to take out course, just one brief comment in regards to, my sister used to have a mill running nose. I worked with her in the mold industry for probably 8 years. And I was an inspector, I went in all kinds of, I had some similar problem, but, one of the things she said is, she was total cheese eating and everything else, bad diet. And then she went on, it was like raw greens for a while. I can't remember all the details, but yeah.
Yeah. Funguses will, and they love living in a human body. It's warm and moist. And so, okay, she's bringing the mic for you so we can get it on the recording.
I have been in the business of fire and water damage restoration for 27 years. And we dealt with a lot of mold and we dealt with a lot of ozone. Ozone is amazing to kill all that stuff.
Yes.
Ozone purifies everything. You can use it to put your vegetables, I have 4 ozone generators and I actually take and it runs and I have this tube and then a little ball that bubbles.
Right.
And I put my vegetables in there and let them run for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, just depending on what I have. And it's supposed to clean all of that, do all of that.
I think it
I've
does.
seen amazing things.
Yes.
You can put it in your water and it will also cleanse your water and make it drinkable. So ozone is an
We
amazing
have a
thing.
ozone generator for our washing machine, and we hardly use laundry soap now. We just use cold water and the ozone. Ozone's pretty awesome with that, and it does tremendously help. I got Melanie bringing ours over. I'll share that in just a moment here. I've got just 4 more slides. 5 more? 4 more. I want to get through here. Oh, we got more. Go ahead. Microphone.
I don't know if anybody knows it, but lightning creates ozone.
Yes. Yes. Lightning creates.
Lightning.
Also, the waves that crash on the beach causes ozone.
That's why it's healing when you go to the beach.
Yes, that's why it's healing when you go to the beach. But also, in the fire and water damage restoration, I would have it. Take everything, clean it, and put it in an ozone chamber, and you should see how the molecules separate and fall to the ground like white ash. It's incredible what ozone does. It's great.
So this is our little ozone generator. $140 roughly off of Amazon. This is ozone and UV light, so it does both. I turned it on. We might be able to smell it in here. You actually, if it wasn't so open, can you smell it back there already? You really don't want to stay in the room where it's running. They say that it's hard on, although in all honesty, I've walked. In fact,
There's different. That's how I help these.
and that's how I help my sinuses. But I do one because it's oxygen deficient, and you don't want to go there. But to breathe in a little bit, can everybody start to smell kind of the lemony?
There are different levels of those machines that you can buy. Put in the house and you can run them all the time. They don't hurt you.
Yes, there are some different ones you can get. This is what we use. I put this under the house, turn it on for 8 hours, and just let it run under there. And while we're gone to help. And this has helped a lot with that.
Another thing about mold, a guy near here that has a lot of, he's dealt with a lot
I guess I could have gave her the microphone, huh?
houses down by the river that flood, and then they have to restore them, and then they do it again over and over. And they keep trying to restore these houses that have been flooded, but they got a lot of mold in them because of it. And he said that like Clorox doesn't work on mold and stuff like that. What works is to take vinegar and salt together, put some water with it. I've never gotten a recipe, but I usually do just like half and half.
That's a good application for vinegar, good place for it.
And you can spray it on, and it will kill mold. And
if you're going to do more than just a little patch in the shower or something, go get a paint respirator and wear it while you're doing it, because here's what happens. Everybody's at least seen if you put weed killer on the weeds and within a day or two they go to seed. The plants come up and they try to go to seed. That's pretty much normal. That's why they use Roundup weed killer on wheat, because it tries to go to seed. The seed is what we eat. That's the grains. So when they put Roundup or the glyphosates off of other brands and whatnot, when they use that on the wheat, it goes to seed. So now they get a bigger crop. Plus, it all does die, but it all dies at the same time. They can harvest the whole field. They don't have to go over here and do a little and go over here and do a little. So it's about money again. And it's very, very cost effective. But when you're dealing with funguses, and I say fungus because not all molds are fungus, but all, I think I said that backwards. Anyway, fungus is more of a generic term that covers all of them. So any of the funguses, when you put anything on them to kill it, whatever you use to kill it with, they almost immediately try to survive. They go to seed, and with a fungus, they throw their spores into the air. You breathe those spores that are in the air from your cleaning, from your killing this off, trying to get health better. You clean it, they go into the air, you breathe it, your sinus cavity is warm and moist, which is the perfect thing for funguses to grow. And yeah, you created yourself a bigger health issue.
So we have greenhouses, and we have a Canadian thistle problem. No offense intended to any Canadians here. But is there any of these chemicals that will kill Canadian thistles? Because you try to cut them and they run runners and they just multiply in seconds. So, yeah.
I know of one. Wait a minute. That was for bugs. That was not for. Yeah.
But I don't think you'd want to do that.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to do that in a greenhouse.
The vinegar makes it bare,
I'm not sure what to do there. The one thing I was thinking I started to say is rhubarb leaves is an awesome pesticide. Put it in a barrel, garbage can or something with water, take off, let it soak, work it a bit, make a tea out of it essentially. It's a great pesticide, but that's not going to help you with getting rid of the plant or killing the plants.
You can mull that over.
Okay, we'll go on. I'm not sure on that. So we're going to kind of shift a little bit again. We're going to talk about hydrolyzed vegetable protein, because this is one, so I'm covering numerous different categories, but these are all things that happen to foods, especially this one if you are a vegetarian or vegan, because most processed vegetarian foods have hydrolyzed vegetable protein in them. So hydrolyzed vegetable protein is used as a thickening flavoring agent. It's made by boiling soy, wheat, corn in hydraulic acid and then neutralizing it with sodium hydroxide. So it's been very chemicalized right off the bat. Dr. Blaylock, and I didn't pull up his research, but Dr. Blaylock back in the 90s put out a report that hydrolyzed vegetable proteins cause issues with the brain, big time. And when we first learned about that, we discovered a particular product called, that we had been using actually in our home, that was called Bragg's Liquid Aminos. It has hydrolyzed vegetable protein in it. Melanie's grandmother, about that point in time, had come to live with us. And when she came, she and her husband came to our home because he was very, very feeble. She had heart issues and was feeble. She was also had dementia symptoms so bad that at times she didn't know who she was, let alone who we were. So Melanie tried something because Grandma used Bragg's Liquid Aminos on everything. She hosed her food down, literally. I mean, we were going through a bottle of this stuff with her alone, like every 2 weeks. She was just, yeah, one of the big bottles. She was just hosing her food down. So Melanie said, Grandma, I want to take this away from you. Well, Grandma Pertner went through withdrawals over that thing. But guess what? How many weeks was it, dear? It was about 3 weeks, wasn't it?
3 or 4 weeks.
This was like in 98 or 99, 90, yeah, in 99. So, but literally, she was with us for 7 months. 17 months, that's right, 17 months. She came to our house not knowing really, like I said, not knowing much. She left and went and lived with her son and was healthy, fine, knew what she was doing, who she was, and what she wanted to do. And no, we took it off of her for the whole time. Well, not initially, but it was, I think it took about 3 or 4 weeks before she started getting her memory back.
Well, where she would come out in the morning and not say, honey, where am I? You know, that's what she was doing when the first 3, until the first 3 weeks we took her off the stuff, then she'd come out and say, hi, what are you doing today? Can I help you make breakfast? And I'm like,
Is that the same with coconut aminos too?
I don't think so. I think coconut aminos is different, but I've not actually dug deep on that. I'm going to go on a little bit more, though, on the hydrolyzed vegetable protein. MSG and hydrolyzed vegetable protein, monosodium glutamate, or MSG, is established. Headache trigger has become far more prevalent in canned, packaged, and prepared foods over the past decade. The presence of MSG in many foods may be difficult to detect since the terms natural flavor and flavoring or hydrolyzed vegetable protein all may appear on labels to refer to MSG. If we give Melanie MSG, if she gets a hold of that in something, she's got a headache that just about does her in. She's no good for the rest of the day. And even the next day it lingers. But what I thought was interesting is because, I mean, if I were to give Prince, our poodle over here, a teaspoon of MSG, we would no longer have a poodle. It would kill him.
wow.
It is.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's what's in the coconut amino.
Okay. She brought up.
Label reading.
Okay, coconut aminos, because somebody asked about that. Organic coconut blossom nectar, organic water, organic apple cider vinegar, and sea salt. Well, that kind of answered that one. And maybe there's a different brand that might be a little different. But yeah, MSG is a deadly poison. And yet they put it in food. Why?
Flavor enhancer.
Flavor enhancer to get you to eat more so that they make more money.
They're saying it's good now.
What?
I'm hearing that people are saying now that it's good because it just goes something that was invented in the war. They used to scrape it off the rocks by the ocean in Japan.
Yeah. Oh, that's always one of the things that you've got to do when you're searching this. Years ago, and I wasn't planning on going here, but I'll take a moment to talk about it. So years ago, we heard about a study about how bad soy products were. Tofu, soy meats, soybeans in general. And that it was very, very bad.
And the protein level was so high, it was toxic to the human body.
Yeah. So I got an idea. I decided to start, and this was when we heard about this was, for us, it was pre-internet. So I started doing some chasing, making phone calls and just connecting dots. Who did the study? Who paid for the study?
Cattle industry.
There you go. The cattle industry is the one that paid for the study that showed that soy products were dangerous for your health. So now I'd have believed it if that would have come from, say, a soybean grower and a wheat grower and whatnot. I'd have probably believed the studies and said, now, since I opened this floodgate of soy, I am going to say they have genetically modified it. They also spray soy with the glyphosates, which cause it to go to seed, which gets them more money, which gets them better crops. So here we go again. There's issues in that way. We all got to kind of make our own choices as to where we go, where we personally have gone, how we're feeding you. What we have done is we try to get the best we can do, and then our prayer is, Lord, do something with it. And try to keep a variety. We eat at home very similar to what you're seeing here. It's not the same thing every day. Although today's pancakes weren't planned, that was a special request, so we went that way. But it's really getting hard. And to be able to get food, I think you just looked up and you've holding the mic. It was like you had a comment a moment ago.
I went away.
Oh, I'm sorry, I talked too long.
No. Oh, by the way, I guess the cattle industry has soybean meal in their cattle feed today.
Oh, yes. So I guess we'll share that real quick. I'm not going too long over, am I? Okay. Okay. So when we were on the ranch, of course, this was in 2000 through 2004. We left spring of 2005 because I was injured, and so that kind of ended my career there. But when we fed corn and peas, dry corn, dry peas to the sheep just prior to sending them out to the time for breeding. And our purpose and reason for that was because corn and peas are a high protein. Now, people will tell you, oh, you're a vegetarian, you're a vegan, and you're not getting enough protein. Corn is 12, to start, well, let me back up. So the human needs 7 to 8%, I think it was, or 7 to 8.5% protein. I think if I'm remembering my numbers right, that's the level of protein that we need. Corn is 12% protein. Dried peas are 22% protein. So those two alone are high protein food. And we fed that high protein. In fact, here's how critical it was with the sheep. Now remember, volatile livers and whatnot. But we found a lot of parallels with the sheep and people. I mean, even in the Bible, we can see that all we like sheep have gone astray. So with the... I derailed on my thought, though, with that. With the protein. We would with the sheep, when I started feeding them the corn and the peas, I had to start out with a very small amount per sheep. So I started with like a 1/8 of a pound per sheep. So I knew how many sheep were in the pasture. I go out there, I got 900 sheep. So I do the math and I know how many pounds to feed. And I would literally use a fertilizer spreader pulled behind the four-wheeler when we started. And I'd spread it out on the ground so that each sheep, we'd kind of calculated, we knew how much they could eat. Because if I were to accidentally dump it, and it happened a couple of times, the thing hit a mound and over the hopper went and the corn and peas hit the ground. If I didn't get it spread out really fast, if one sheep ate too much, they would die. The high protein would kill them. Get it? The high protein would kill them. Soybeans are 50 to 55% protein. So if we're using a lot of soy product, tofu, etc., and yes, we've used tofu here and we use it in our home, but a large amount of it is not a good thing because it is such a high protein. So what we did is we ramped the sheep up a little at a time, where I started out with the feeder in the field just with a few pounds out there. By the time I was at full peak, I was using the tractor with a 2,000-pound hopper in the back and spreading it out thicker and more. But I couldn't skip a single day.
What about pinto beans? Protein.
I'm trying to remember the percentage. I've looked that up. I can tell you where to find it, and I was going to bring my book in here and didn't do it.
Well, just guess.
I think it's about 12. Yeah, there you go. Somebody look it up on your phone.
28 grams.
28 grams, but that doesn't give us a percentage. Okay. So I was thinking it was 12%, but it might be a little high. It could be even higher than that.
It says a serving of black beans, 2.6 grams per cup.
Percentage.
15. Yeah, it says 30 grams of
So anyway, when you look at this,
30%.
point is
16 to 30%.
the beans, the legumes, even corn has protein of a grain. So protein is not our issue. If anything, we get too much protein in our diets. Probably all of us do. In all honesty, we're probably serving you too high of a protein diet up there. It's what we're all used to. It's what we like. 16 to 30%? Okay. God has furnished man. I'm going to go to a quote here. I should give a reference. Signs of the Times, August 11, 1887. Also, you can find it in Original Testimony number 21, page 66. God has furnished man with the abundance of means for the gratification of natural appetite. And before I go on further, I want to clarify something with this, how I see this anyway. Abundance of means for gratification of appetite. So he's given us this huge amount that we can source from. Some of us may go, I can't stand black beans, or corn is just like, okay, and I'm just picking things, okay, randomly. Or okra. Oh, okra is so nasty, slimy. All these different things, reasons. But God has given us other foods, so we don't necessarily, all of us have to eat. We don't all have to eat okra to survive, is what I'm saying. What? Oh, praise the Lord. You know what is funny? When we moved to the South, when living in the Northwest, I never heard of okra. I moved to the South, and this lady serves us okra, and I said, what are these, slugs? It was horrible. Well, since then, we've learned different ways of cooking them. I actually quite enjoy it now, but it took a little bit to get past that initial thought of, but what I'm saying is God gave us plenty of room for our individual taste. We've got room for that in there. So going back to our quote, he has spread before him in the products of the earth a bountiful variety of food that is palatable to the taste and nutritious to the system. Of these our benevolent Heavenly Father says that we may freely eat. We may enjoy the fruits, the vegetables, the grains without doing violence to the laws of our being. These articles, prepared in the most simple and natural manner, will nourish the body and preserve its natural vigor without the use of brandy, alcohol, wine, beer, tea, or coffee. No, we don't need coffee stimulants. We don't need tea stimulants or brandy or alcohol, or we do need the rest, yes. It's often stated to Melanie and I, where do you people get your energy? You just like go, 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 go. It's like, well, we try to be balanced. We try to use temperance, which is using moderately that which is good and abstaining from those things that are not. And because of that, we pray a lot. And we ask for strength to be able to continue to go forward. Signs of the Times, August 11, 1887, this is paragraph 4. Although made in the image of God, man has, through intemperance, violated principle and God's law in his physical nature. Intemperance of any kind benumbs the perceptive organs and so weakens the brain nerve power that eternal things are not appreciated but are placed upon a level with common things. Right back to where I started from, really, and that is our diet a salvational issue? The higher powers, I'm going back to the quote, the higher powers of the mind designed for elevated purposes are brought into slavery to the baser passions. If our physical habits are not right, our mental and moral powers cannot be strong, for great sympathy exists between the physical and the moral. The Apostle Peter understood this and raised his voice of warning to his brethren. Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. So like I said, we can't eat our way to heaven, but we can definitely eat our way out of it. Review and Herald, August 19, 1890. Men can never enter heaven with their old tastes, inclinations, idols, ideas, and theories. Heaven would be no place of joy to them, for everything would be in collision with their tastes and appetites and inclinations, and painfully opposed to their natural and cultivated traits of character. Simply prepared food. We can have very palatable food, and it doesn't have to be complex and extremely time-consuming. So, got 2 more slides. Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. We're all familiar with that, I would hope. Having these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from the filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. And original testimony number 11, page 41, gluttony has been the prevailing sin of the age. Lustful appetite has made slaves of men and women, and has beclouded their intellects and stupefied their moral sensibilities to such a degree that the sacred, elevated truths of God's word have not been appreciated. And something that I want to add to that, or a thought to that, is there are fat sinners and there are skinny sinners. And I'm talking about diet. And I'm going to just talk about me for just a moment in this aspect. I was one of those skinny sinners. I used to brag that I could eat anything, anytime, anywhere, of any amount. I loved food eating competitions because I rarely lost. Rarely. I lost one time because I wanted more ice cream and I didn't want to eat any more corn dogs because I was going to miss out on the homemade ice cream. I'd already had 22 corn dogs, but yes, ma'am, I agree. Yes. Oh, believe me, I have. And I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just saying I was never fat. But just because I could eat it and not get fat and it didn't show, didn't make me any less of a sinner than if I'd have weighed 400 pounds. And I mean, it's a sad testimony that we're that way. I went to a gentleman's house that I worked with. He was on our fire department, and I had my lunch that I'd packed. We were there working on a truck, and we stopped for lunch, and I was rather embarrassed. And this was not too many years ago. This would have been maybe 10, 11 years ago. I had 3 sandwiches, and I mean, it was a healthy lunch. It wasn't a bad lunch. And she serves their plates. They had maybe 1/10 of the amount of food that I had. I kind of slipped one of my sandwiches back in the sack, and we ate lunch and talked, and I don't know if they noticed. They didn't say anything. But I was still there. We weren't done with the project. We were trying to get this truck taken care of, and we were working on it, and we were there for supper. And we normally have a 2-meal-a-day program, but when I'm physically working extremely hard, I will sometimes do a 3rd meal and usually try to keep it very light. So we go in to eat, and I'm thinking, yeah, 3rd meal a day, they're going to pork out this time. They're going to have plates full. Nope. I was there at all different times through different periods. They never ate a large amount. By the way, both of them were heavier than I as far as weight-wise, and they ate a very small amount. And I really do think that temperance is something that is lacking with all of us. It's still something I'm working on, trying to convince myself I don't need that extra. And sad to say, here's what happens, though, to a lot of people. I took that picture, both of those pictures, actually. I don't know if you can see that chair, but that chair is smaller than these chairs here. And of course, she's walking out. I was in a restaurant. Not a place I go very often, but I stopped there. And that's what we see. And I intentionally took those pictures from the back so nobody would be able to identify. But that's a sad case. But I think it's still just as sad, though, for the skinny sinners. And so watching what we put in is so important. In the way of righteousness is life, and in the pathway thereof there is no death. Proverbs 12:28. So that is just a brief cover. I know there was others that we're going to be talking about ingredients and what's in it, and I think that's important. We should be looking at that carefully. Search it up. It's so easy now. We can get our phones out and we can look them up and we can see what this stuff is. David, yes.
Yeah, I can actually say that I was very skinny and a sinner, and it came to a point where I was so skinny that I was like, I thought I needed to eat more and stuff like that. But what happens is that your mind becomes very clouded the more that you eat. And there's a lot of quotes about that, right? So I did it for a while, and then I was trying to put on weight, because I realized I was skinny. And anyways, I would eat everybody else's meal wherever we went and whatever, because it was just like, I'm trying to get bigger. And anyways, I went through that time, and then but it kept continuing even now, like a little bit. It's been a while now but I've really realized that I cut down on the size of my meals. But I will tell you, it helps with having a clarity of mind, especially if you're sharing. I notice when I'm sharing stuff, right? Like if I do something that's not right or eat something that wasn't good, it would really affect how clear I was in my presentation.
Yes.
And you can definitely notice that kind of stuff the more that you eat. So especially if you're sitting and listening to presentations as well, you want to be careful what you put in your body if you're going to get that light, like Ellen White was saying in those quotes. It's important.
Yeah. All speakers know that you don't want the meeting right after lunch, because everybody is going to be going to sleep on you. And yeah, I've had my share of those. Somebody else want to comment?
I just wanted to ask, probably more than likely, I would say, has everybody here read the China study? Okay. Anybody who's not read it? Okay. All right. So in that study, because you were talking about protein earlier, and in that study, the man who wrote that study grew up on a dairy farm. Okay. So he's used to, this type of diet, right? And thinking that, hey, this is where the protein is. And he would go out and they go to I think India, I think it was, or someplace like that. And there were these kids that were from well-to-do families dying of cancer, or just, severe cancer, stage 2, 3, whatever. And so they kept giving them, the thought was, we need to give them more protein. And they were dying like flies. And so finally what he did was he fed them a different diet that was not high protein. And guess what happened? The cancer started reversing. Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah. So as I just finish up, close up, I just got to put a plug in for some books, all on the health subject. The Place of Health Reform and Character Development by Julius Gilbert White, not related to James and Ellen. It was done in years later. The Place of Herbs in Rational Therapy by Ellen White. All these are up there on the table. And of course, I mentioned Health and How to Live, 1865. This was Ellen White's and James White's first book. Excuse me, got a tickle. The first book on health, that is. They actually quoted some things in, what? No, most of this book is not written by them. There is a little bit by them, and there's some things I was just going to say in this book that you can. They didn't agree with exactly, but they said the overall tenor of the article was good. So even they didn't agree with some of the things that were put in here. It's still a worth read, but if you're really pushed for time and you just don't think you got time to do all of it, go for this one, Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene. This is by James and Ellen White. And yeah, use of drugs. I only have one or two. I didn't bring any down. The use of drugs in the care of the sick is another one. You can always get more off our website. But knowledge is just indispensable. And how we get that is reading the books. So anyway, let's pray and we'll close. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come praising and thanking you so much for leading, guiding, and directing. We thank you for your loving care. Father, I pray that as we've looked at food ingredients, as we've looked at these things that can either be the means of health or not, that you will help us to become careful in all of these things so that we can be well and strong. And we thank you for your guiding in this and for your blessing upon us each one. In Jesus' name, amen.